just want to kind of jump into the rest of the session tonight and just focus on a little bit about what week 6 is about. It's wrapping up our class, and so we're finishing up our overview of the Bible, and that's a big piece. I want to get you guys ready, if we can, to even do a couple more things that help get us ready for Philemon and the final project. We do have, as you saw on the Moodle, I did trim it back a little bit. There's only 3 assignments for this week, but then there is the main one coming up, of course. That'll be due next, whatever it is. What is it, Friday? Yeah, 3 days after the last, no, it's Wednesday, Wednesday of next week, because the class runs through Sunday. So, but those are the big picture things. But as far as wrapping up the review of the Bible, we're going to be, okay, Philemon is one of the letters. And again, if we're understanding how it is to interpret different parts of the Bible with the different rules that each genre of literature brings, the letter is a different genre. And then the final book of the Bible is the book of Revelation. And we don't spend a lot of time. You'll get to watch a video on it this week and do a little bit of reading about it. But the book of Revelation isn't something we focus on very heavily in the class. But it's important to note that when we're talking about literary style, the genre of the book of Revelation is completely unique. There aren't 2 or 3 or 4 of this certain style. Like we have, numbers of examples of narrative. We have a handful of prophetic books. We have handfuls of New Testament letters. We have hundreds of poems in the book of Psalms and different varieties of wisdom literature and things such as that. But when it comes to the apocalyptic nature of the book of Revelation, it really is unique. There are little strains that you find in other places, a couple of different places in particular, a couple of Old Testament books, primarily book of Daniel, which has some of the precursors to what we see in Revelation, but it's really different. And so I just point out again, you don't have to read it too heavily, but I know one of your chapters in Fee and Stewart this week touches on the book of Revelation. And I thought, well, on page 259 and 260, it actually gives a really good overview. And then again, when it goes into 266, talking about the historical context of where this book kind of fits in the historical story, I think those are good and helpful for us. Most people don't read too much in the book of Revelation because of the challenge that it is. It's a difficult book to understand. There are parts of it that are so visual or symbolic in nature that it becomes difficult sometimes for us to get a good handle on it. But if you want to read, just again, focus on that. On page 259, there at the bottom of the page, it talks about that, how difficult it is. That in fact, I'll just read out of here. In this case, in the book of Revelation, we face a different kind of problem. For Revelation is a unique, finely blended combination of 3 distinct literary types. It is apocalypse, it is prophecy, and it is letter or epistle in nature. And so because it is that weird combination, it is really unique in making it very, very difficult. And on page 260, it talks about kind of the three main points that help us when we're going to start into it. It's understanding that while it's unique, it does have roots that go into the Old Testament, primarily in some of the prophets, primarily of the prophets, Ezekiel, Daniel, Zechariah, and parts of Isaiah. So I know, for example, we've got a group in our church who's studying the book of Daniel. And if you were studying the book of Daniel, you would see some similarities, because there are some pieces of this prophetic material that do kind of, you can understand, you see it where it is. The other thing about apocalyptic material, it almost always comes during times of persecution or opposition. And so when we are reading it in the midst of times of peace or in times of stability, sometimes the message gets lost because we're not reading it as people who are in the midst of persecution or opposition. And so the context for we as readers, we need to understand the context of the writer. Otherwise, we're going to miss out on maybe what the meaning is, because it can have a different meaning coming into our life situation. Then again, number two, again, talks about it's a form of literature, whereas the prophets were speaking their word or were told to say this to the nation. This John, who is the writer of it, is told to write what he is about to see. And so it is a similar idea, but this letter was written as a way of capturing what was being revealed, hence the name Revelation, what was being revealed to John, and then he was to write down as best he could. And that's why when you read it, he will, one of the key phrases in Revelation is he'll say there is something, a creature or a vision of something, and he'll say it is like, or it sounded like, because there's no clear, it's not exactly like that because it's not that, but it has similarities because he's explaining something, a vision that is difficult for us to put into the practical because it is a heavenly vision. And then number three, the stuff of apocalyptic things are generally in visions or dreams. And so their language is either cryptic, having hidden meanings. And of course, in Revelation, everything from the various numbers that are used often are almost code-like in their original context, or symbolic. And again, if you don't understand the symbolism that the author is using, you are not going to understand the meaning of what the symbol means. So it's difficult, but it's still there and it's still an important piece of New Testament literature. But it's just, we want to just touch on that. I'm not going to do too much more. You have that one video to watch, a little bit of wrestling with it, but just wanted to lay it out there. But for our night tonight, I do want to kind of, in a way of getting ready for Philemon, because it's a letter, is to go back into Paul's letters. And we're going to look at a different letter tonight. But we're going to look at the letter of 1 Corinthians and just do a little bit of reading in 1 Corinthians, primarily 1 Corinthians chapter 12, which in your red Bibles, if you have those out, is on page 2052. And if you would with me, we're going to go ahead and read through chapter 12 and then chapter 13. Chapter 12 is a little bit longer. I'll probably have maybe 4 of you take parts of chapter 12 and then save chapter 13 for the last 2 members. So kind of we'll gear up. Everyone gets a chance to do a little bit of reading tonight. And then we'll kind of just discuss what's going on here in this little snippet of this longer letter that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth. The reason we pick this out is because one of the challenges the church has always had, whether it be first century in Philemon's day or Paul's day, or 21st century in our time, is that it's easy for us to get fractured or fragmented. There's all kinds of issues that tend to divide people, and therefore also then divide the church. And because of that, one of Paul's key themes, we saw, you will see it this week as you read through the book of Galatians, one of Paul's key themes is trying to touch on an understanding of our sense of unity and how do I say it? A unity in the midst of diversity. So not a uniformity, but being unified even though we're different. And an equality, even though there will be different aspects or different giftedness or different abilities, and yet there's still going to be a level ground of equality in the midst of that. So we're going to take a look again. If you've got your red Bible, go ahead and pull it out again on 2052. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians 12. If you're working off a different Bible and it's in the New Revised Standard, that's fine. We'll just call out the verses. If you can't find the verses, please try now. If you can't find them, then we'll just let me know when it's your time to read. And if you're reading if you're working off your phone and you have your Bible app, again, just punch in 1 Corinthians 12, and then we'll be ready to go. So do I have my first reader? And our first reader is going to read just a real short section. This is actually the easiest one. It's only 3 verses long, but that doesn't mean it's not an important section. So first reader, verses 1 through 3. Second reader would be taking verses 4 through 13. Next one would be 14 through 26, and then 26 to 31. So first 4 readers to read the first chapter, which is number 12. We'll start with you, Robin. Are you there at verses 1 through 3?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers and sisters, I do not want you to be ununiformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were enticed and led astray to idols that could not speak. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking by the Spirit of God ever says, "Let Jesus be cursed," and no one can say, "Jesus is Lord," except by the Holy Spirit.
Okay, before we go on, that one doesn't feel like unity, but it really is. What would be an example where that line could help 2 people who were also believers but were having feeling divided? How would that call them to unity?
It's kind of putting them in the same bracket where no one has power over the other. No one could say, let Jesus be cursed or Jesus is Lord, but rather to see that within each other and to come together for support.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly right, Robin. When say that you're a Christian, but you're different from me, but you say Jesus is Lord and I say Jesus is Lord. Even if there's a difference, guess what? We also have now a point of unity, don't we? And so that becomes kind of the foundational piece here that Paul's going to build on. Okay, second reader. This is a key piece as we move through, beginning at verse 4 and taking us on to verse through 13. Talking about spiritual gifts. This is a fun one. I know the next one's even more fun, but that's okay. Go ahead, anybody.
I will.
Thank you, Don.
Gotta do it while he's quiet.
Yes.
Okay. Starting on 4?
Yes, please. 4 through 13.
Okay. So now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit, and there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. To one is given through the spirit of utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit. To another gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another the working of miracles. To another prophecy. To another the discerning of spirits. To another various kinds of tongues. To another the interpretation of tongues. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body through many are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit.
Good. Okay, thank you. So again, is Paul acknowledging there's going to be diversity?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All kinds of diversity. And he's actually saying, don't be surprised by that. That's how God did it. It's, these gifts are given out in various ways, but given out by the Holy Spirit himself. So, okay, good. Okay, so let's keep it going. Verse 14 through verse 26. Who would be on my next reader?
Yeah, I read 16, right?
Yes. Oh, beginning at 14.
Oh, 14? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Is it begin with the for the body, right?
Yes.
Okay, for the body is not one member, but many. And if the foot shall say, because I'm not the hand and I'm not on the body, it is therefore not of the body. And if the ear shall say, because I'm not the eye, I'm not of the body, it is therefore not of the body. So if the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing? So if the whole word hearing, where was this smelling? But now hath God set the member, every one of them in the body, as his hath pleased him. And if there were all one member for the body, but now there are many members, yet but one body. And the eyes cannot see unto the hand, I have no need of thee, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. Nay, much more those members of the body which seem to more feeble are necessary, and those members of body which we think to be less honorable upon these be bestowed more abundant honor, and or uncomely parts have more abundance comeliness, and for comely parts have no need, but God tempered the body together, having given more abundant honor to the part which lack. There should be no schism in the body, but
Probably schism, but
schism. Okay, schism in the body.
It means dissension or a division. Yeah.
Okay. Schism in the body, but that's the members should have the same care one for another. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored and all the members rejoice with it.
Good. Thank you very much, Pia. Okay, let's finish up this chapter again. 27 through 31. Our fourth reader, please. Okay, go ahead, Andrea.
Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then deeds of power, then gifts of healing, forms of assistance, forms of leadership, various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? But strive for the greater gifts, and will show you a still more excellent way.
Okay, so Paul says to strive for these gifts, but I will show you the still more excellent way. But again, what we see is he is explaining that we're not all the same. Some will have these gifts of apostleship or prophetic gifts, or teaching gifts, or miraculous gifts, all these different ways that we can all be different. And going back into what Pia spoke about, even as he uses the analogy of the body, every part of the body is essential, even though some are more obvious than others, and all have different functions, but all the functions are important to the body. And he uses the example of the eye. If all the body were an eye, or if all the body were a foot, what would the sense of smell be? Or how would you get along? There's a lot that he puts in here that he says, just like there is a body that is made up of many, many different parts, yet together they make a body. A hand by itself doesn't do much good, Paul would say. I mean, you cut your hand off, what good is it going to do? Not much good at all. But together with the rest of the body, it plays its part. Okay, So this most excellent way that Paul then ends chapter 12 with and moves us into in chapter 13. Would someone read verses 1 through 7? And then I'll have my last reader pick up there at verse 8 and walk us through verse 13. Because again, whenever there are going to be sources of division and difference, a lot of times we'll feel like either we're not valued, or maybe we don't value those around us because they're different than us. And then Paul gives us this 13th chapter to remind us of the glue that is to hold us together. So go ahead, 13, 1 through 7.
I'll read it.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. How far am I supposed to go?
Good, right to there.
Okay.
Up there, okay. And our final piece here, is this you, Shanna?
That's me.
Okay, verses 8 through 13.
Love never ends, but as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I acted like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love.
Very good. Okay. You know, a lot of times we hear those verses, especially that chapter 13 that Terry and Shannon read for us, and that becomes kind of, they pull them out of their context, and they still work because it's a powerful verse. But Paul writes them here. Again, it's not because he is writing about love for husband and wife, although that does fit in the context. But the real context is chapter 12, which is, how is it that we who are different can get along? How is it we who have divisions because of those differences? How can we somehow become unified, be one? You know, what are some of the sources of division? What would you say if someone were just to ask, what causes people to be so divided in the world we live in today? And then second part of that question would be then, what kind of connection can we see in Paul's teaching in chapter 12, and especially then in 13, for what it means to be more unified? What causes division, or how do we separate people today?
Politics.
Politics, okay, yeah. If you're a conservative or if you're a progressive, you're probably not going to get along. You probably can't even be friends on Facebook. Okay.
Financial status.
Yeah, absolutely. Status, yeah, that is a big one, much debate right now, isn't it?
Divides us.
Race, religion.
Okay, race and religion,
Okay.
both. Yeah. Yeah, we do that. We make big deals out of everything. Seems like any difference that we can find, whether it be something as shallow as skin color, or something as deep as what your heart faith is. Those are all things that we cause us to divide. and there's something, I know this, I'm going to take it a little bit out of context here because Paul is talking specifically about the church. And so he's saying within the church, while we're united by being of one faith, but yet there's still a lot of things that will have a tendency to divide us. And so, looking at some of the differentness, he focuses on our different types of gifts, how we're created differently and we fit and function in different ways. But I think we can see a lot of the differentness that causes most of us to be divided. How could we kind of begin to turn that around, where instead of seeing them as divisions, see those as gifts, that we find the good in one another instead? It seems to be what Paul's pointing to. And I think we see that, especially as he moves into chapter 13, that becomes the maybe the only way that we can overcome those differences and see the good in one another. When we pick up a kind of love like Terry and Shanna expressed there as they read those verses for us. And so now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So hold on to that thought as we move into our wrapping up Philemon and what Paul's message is when he's interacting with Philemon, when he is referencing people of different status and people who in their day would have probably been as diverse as people are today politically, or as diverse as people who have different immigration status or different opinions about what their status would be. We were talking about serious cultural baggage and lines of demarcation that are being blurred here in the book of Philemon. And Paul is very intentional about that. I mean, the fact that he uses words like brother for Philemon and son for Onesimus, and he chooses very intentionally not to play the games of hierarchy and not to play the games of power and all the normal things that the world operates under, and doesn't use one political group against the other or try to make alliances that somehow can through might make right. But he uses a different motivator in Philemon. And anyone want to just tell me, what do you see? What is Paul using in Philemon as his primary motivating force? Okay, I'll give you an example. I'm going to say it is his belief that because they are both in Christ, Philemon and Onesimus, that they are in fact one. To a degree that Philemon has probably never considered that fact before. And because they are one, not just two people who have the same faith, but they are one, that makes a difference on how we interact with each other and how we treat one another. And I think that becomes the foundation for what Paul is going to try to express in this short little letter that we're going to be investigating. But I think it does have a context, and a lot of the New Testament runs around this theme. But Philemon kind of brings it, kind of where the rubber meets the road, in the midst of relationships where there is either a breakdown because of division, or breakdown because of a wound or hurt or disappointment in other people. Paul's call is to still somehow find a way of reconciling and moving to that place of not being enemies, but somehow being united in a place of oneness, not just people who agree with each other, but beyond that, there's a different level he's getting after. So, and I think if that's what we take away from the class, that's a good takeaway. That the Bible is here for us to understand a little bit more about who God is, but beyond that, it's also here to help us understand who we are and who those others are around us. And so if we see something in this little short letter to Philemon that says, hey, I need to maybe consider how I treat one another or treat other people, or maybe what it means for me to see people who are different, or people on the other side of the fence, but not see them as enemy, but instead find that this letter is an example of what it means to live instead as one. Then maybe this is the perfect letter. And though it's kind of often lost in the middle of the New Testament, because let's be honest, how many of you even knew where the heck the book of Philemon was before this class started? Probably not, and that's okay. I'm not going to grade you down for that. It's because no one knows where Philemon is. They don't even know it's in the Bible, and yet here it is. It's a critical piece for us, and I think an important piece, and I'm glad that we had a chance to wrestle a little bit with it. Okay?
I agree with you, John. I think that's important for us to remember going into social work, is that we kind of have to put ourselves aside and become one with the clients that we help, and just try to become unified with them and not separate ourselves so much from them, because we are still all children of Christ, right? We all still need to have each other's, regardless of where we come from or what we're going through in life. We got to try to help them by being where they're at in their life, by meeting them in their story somewhere.
Yeah. I think you see, like I say, you see that kind of as an example. I think and that's what I think that's the power of the book of Philemon. Sometimes people ask me, why is it even here? It's not there's no great, theological renderings. It's not like the book of Romans that has all these things, but it's different. And but there's a real powerful message in it. So I'll look forward to reading it. Remember, when you do your signature assignment, I want you to start that way. Start with that. Basically, your first paragraph is going to tell me what you think is going on, or what you think the message of Philemon really is about. And then you'll spend the rest of, the bulk of it is walking through using some structure, probably historical world, literary world, contemporary world lenses to kind of look at it and tell me why you see this letter expressing what you believe it's about. And it can come out in a lot of different ways, but what's going on, and then your conclusion. So you can cite other sources, and if you do, please tell me what they are. But you can also cite no outside sources. They can just be you and this letter, where you do quote from Paul and the letter, or quote outside of the letter in other parts of the Bible. Do note the reference. For example, if this is in verse 10, or this is in verse 19, or this is coming from Colossians chapter 3, verses 3, whatever. But use, if you're going to quote from the Bible, make sure you let me know exactly where you're at and how you're utilizing the Bible to better interpret the Bible itself for your paper. Okay?
Have you had a chance to look at the other ones, just to kind of see how we did?
No, it's not. That's my goal tonight, Jerry. So hopefully by tomorrow morning you'll see the contemporary world essay with some notes coming back your way.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That was supposed to be today, quite honestly, but my day did not go quite like I expected it to. So, and that happens. So I'd love to have you so you can interact with it, but you'll get it by tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. Okay, well, thank you guys, and thank you so much, not only for sharing with me tonight about where God has you and where God is taking you, but also thanks for being a fantastic class. This is my first 439, my first class of social work people, and I think I'm going to fall in love. If the other cohorts for social work cohorts are half as good as you guys, I'm going to love these classes. So you guys were awesome.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. We appreciate you as well. I don't know about the rest of the cohort, but I definitely have taken more from this BIB class than I did with the first one.
Oh,
And
Oh yeah.
it's opened my eyes to not being so down on opening the Bible.
Well, fantastic. Well, you just made my day, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anything else I can do for you, you let me know, okay? I owe you one now.
Not just Bible. I think for the first time taking Bible classes, I think this is by far I learned a lot more than my other Bible classes that I took. So this one and maybe Professor John, maybe you kind of know because when you first saw my writing and maybe to like yesterday, you can tell a little bit that I grasped not the whole 100%, but more than I thought.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see from the first week, just to see your ability to express things that I mean, it's like at first I thought, oh boy, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a big challenge. You've taken to it. You've done really, really well.
One of my co-worker at work, she's a Christian and she very involved in church, and she said that by the time I'm done, I can be a pastor.
There you go. A couple more classes, growing the way you are. I wouldn't put it past you.
Yeah, I wish I've been that great so I can be a pastor for a church. Right? Awesome. But thank you, Professor John. You do an awesome job.
It has been my pleasure.
I know that I've already done my not an assessment. What do they call it at the end that we do, like a review? Or
yeah, the review that week 6.
Yeah. I did mine last week. But I think that the most helpful thing for me was your lecturing. Like I learned a lot from that. So I appreciate that a lot because just like everybody else, the first class that we took, it was rough.
Yeah, you know, and I think they're doing that. The more we're doing the online, I'll be honest with you, the first couple of times I did a class online, I didn't do as much teaching because I didn't know that we could. We were working off kind of an older model of doing online things, and we're far more hybrid now, and this fits a lot better. I think it's a lot better, more effective way of trying to teach still, even though we can't be in the same room. But thank you, Dawn. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I've definitely learned so much more, and even tonight as we're reading these, you know, 1 Corinthians, I was like, oh wow, I could just feel like the light bulb coming on even more, and like a deeper way of understanding. I was like, my goodness, you know, it's just it just opened up. You've opened up a whole new level for me.
Well, good. Well, Terry, I can't wait for you to get in some Bible study here at church and have you just tell everyone all your new knowledge. And they'll say, man, what happened to Terry? Wow, we should all go to FPU too.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you guys all very much. I'll look forward to it. And if there's anything else you need, shoot me an email, contact me somehow. Yeah, I'm not too far away. I don't live in Los Banos. Sorry, Robin, but I am right here in Atwater. I know a lot of you are not too far away. So if you need to get a hold of me, please do. Okay.
Will you put this? Will you put this one on the website as well?
Yeah, but I probably won't do the. I won't put up the talking about unless you guys want. I won't put up the talking about where you're going. I would just put once we. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really need the lecture part.
It'll be shorter. Yeah, we did other things, but I will put the part that's appropriate.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. That way I can go back and listen to it again while he's sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, and when you listen to it again, if you want to, read along with it. The Bible really is amazing, and that chapter 12, chapter 13, especially if we look at it from the context of our present day divisiveness that we deal with. I think there really is a pattern in there. There really is something to work with.
There's so much in chapter 12. I mean, there's like so much in that. One of the things that I don't know if everybody else understands, but one of the reasons I believe that Paul continuously says it's one spirit, one spirit, one spirit that does all these things is because the Corinthians were monotheistic or something. That was it. They believed
polytheistic. They believed many gods.
Many gods. Yeah. And so when he was saying that, this is happening and this is happening, but it's the one spirit doing it, that was like vital for them to hear that, because they needed to understand that it was one spirit and not many, because that's what they believed in. So, I mean, just like little things like that, that's a lot of history. I know to understand that. I thought it was very cool.
Good.
Just throwing that out there.
Good. Thank you, Don. See, keep notes on that. When you're a pastor, you can refer to that. You'll know a little bit more about the Corinthians.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Pia?
I hear that. I hear that loud and clear.
Good. Right.
I'm sure that there's a huge need for
And
a Christian pastor.
And I second with John too. With John too.
Okay. Good. Good. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, you guys have a blessed Easter. Okay. What a great time to be wrapping up this class and all in the spirit of Easter and the resurrection. So I hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you around somewhere, running across you somewhere. Okay.
Okay.
I'll see you Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. See you Sunday, Terry.
All right.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Okay, bye. Bye, everyone.
I
Bye.